that in 3 months. In 3 months.
Well, I think it's Christine Lagarde who says when you really want to know what to happen, you find the people. When you don't want to, you find just the people.
Exactly, always excuses, yes.
In 3 months,
Yes.
it
Yeah.
says a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. But if we change the focus, I think the effort will slow down and we have to really make it sustainable. Ah, we're a bit anxious not having too many people.
Our students are used to, since we're on campus, it's very easy to just leave your room on.
Yeah, exactly.
How many students, Marcel, how many students do you have in the campus?
Right now, we have a lot less because most of our programs have finished, except for the chronic health program and the MBA. So we have masters into specialized programs. And the city, essentially, they all ended about a month ago.
Okay.
And so it's primarily our LP and one first-year students for the chronic health. And the programs ended the intake in January, so
Yeah.
and those were finishing up. Our grad is next month, which is these are graduation ceremonies along with museums. But this was part of the gamble. But that's wrong if you wanted to leave the only because you wanted to start creating momentum.
And at your maximum,
At our maximum of 4,500 students on campus.
4,500. Wow.
On some hard we have 1,800 students that reside in the city, mainly our LP, N1, and MBA students. Our M2 students in the city spend only about campus students. And then we have a separate school for our so the bulk, I would say, of our students is medical programs. So we call them pre-experience programs. And then MBA, PMBA, or post-experience. I would say the split is probably 80-20. 80% with pre-experience, 20% in post-experience. So that's why we were really happy because Shubi is an MBA student. Shemzi and Elif are pre-experience programs, part of our drama group. It's really nice to actually have this coordinated
What we were feeling always like all of these people are young people and we can still like somehow mentor them even from the MBA side because we get a lot of support sometimes from the MBA.
Exactly.
Like the mentorship, we try to like connect with them at least like somewhere or the other. It's a good power, right? For bond.
Because MBA students, I think you have between 5 and 8 years of work experience, right? Our pre-experienced students have less than 1 year. And so we often leave these sort of integrated sort of events allow for exactly what you just shared was this sort of shared knowledge because you have the experience and sometimes the younger ones, the younger populations have the
New
ideas.
yes.
Exactly.
New ideas.
And so this kind of meshing is really always interesting.
And they're like really good like profiles in MBA
Exactly.
We have some of the EVTs who's from Vintage.
Yes, exactly.
One of I recently got her profile from magazine, from Lady Scientist magazine, editor for that in our media. We get to like know people from different industries and you get to learn from them a lot. They're very open to mentorship.
Good. Very good.
Yeah.
And people there asking for mentorship. Is it something
Come closer.
usual?
Don't be shy.
We try to like do it from the club side as well. That if somebody from the MBA approaches it and she wants to help, then like we try to like feature the profile and then ask people to like reach out. That really helps us. I mean, I have reached here with a lot of help, support from so many different people.
But I was saying to Cecile that what I like, especially in this topic, it's one of the rare topics where we can really share authentically in the ecosystem, sometimes with competitors, because we are facing all the same
Absolument. Un très très beau panel. Bon, vous êtes ouvert?
Mais oui, c'est ça. On va peut-être commencer vers 6h15, non?
Oui. Done deal.
On peut dire à 6h30 parce que c'est là. Donc, c'est quoi le maximum? Parce qu'on peut 7 heures.
Hopefully we're going to accelerate research.
On va commencer, puis on va inviter le restaurant qui va suivre la langue.
Ouais, pour laisser les portes
Oui,
ouvertes.
pour laisser les portes ouvertes, effectivement, mais parce que sinon, on va trouver des bouteilles en arrière. C'est stand-up, le programme stand-up. Le vernissage, et donc ils nous attendent pour aller là-bas.
Mais tout le monde avait été informé du chanteur?
Oui, oui, tout le monde est informé. Mais c'est...
Oui, c'est la fin de l'année.
C'est la fin de
Les gens
l'année.
parlent d'un truc
On a
d'agriculture.
toujours des inquiétudes aussi sur la météo parce qu'on a ces phénomènes-là, mais on a également le live streaming. Donc c'est pour ça qu'on a des gens en ligne. C'est un peu le trade-off que je fais. Si je le pars trop tard, je vais pénaliser les gens en ligne.
l'audience en ligne.
Je perds l'audience en ligne,
Ouais.
donc c'est pas mieux non plus.
Ok.
Donc je dis 18h15, on commence
Avec plaisir.
et on vit avec.
Et on est, c'est 45 minutes, hein? C'est ça?
L'idée, c'est de finir pour 19h.
OK.
C'est pour ça que je disais qu'on ne prend pas de questions nécessairement en salle. On fait lors du cocktail. Ça vous permet également de rencontrer le directeur général.
OK.
Très bien personnalité. Donc, sur l'ensemble, on va s'en sortir. Je suis vraiment désolée.
Ne le soyez pas, il n'y a pas de... C'est plus fort que moi.
Ça, pour le coup, c'est impossible de ne pas le dire. Faudrait que je check téléphone. I mean, you've got some great numbers there. Like in the student, exactly. And the students will be able to, the idea is to set the stage with facts. That this is a business case around gender, because there are so many dimensions to gender, or to diversity. And then we go with that. We got this. All right.
Est-ce que du coup on a un timekeeper alors? Ou alors on est là?
Oui, oui, oui. Oui, oui, voilà.
We're going to start in about no less than 5 minutes, and we thank you for being here. We also would love it if you could come up closer, because we would allow us to have an
Oui,
intimate
oui,
discussion.
oui, d'accord. OK. OK.
We have the immense privilege of having a former minister with us, so please enjoy the moment of intimacy that we can have.
that okay? So it's Karine, you're there. Elizabeth.
So I'm sitting
Yes.
here.
You here? Here.
Yeah, this is you.
Yes, because we are live streaming. Yeah.
There is one left. This one. No. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me well? Are we good to go? Perfect. So first of all, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for being here for this Dare to Care Achieving More Together event. We are delighted to welcome you today as we celebrate the power of diversity and inclusion. We're here with you to challenge the status quo regarding gender diversity. We have an exceptional lineup of speakers, and who will share the unique perspective on how we can create a more inclusive world.
First, Cécile Kossoff. She is the CMO of Mazar Group, as well as global leaders of diversity and inclusion. And formerly at McKinsey, she co-authored and wrote the authoritative piece of research, Women Matter, for 10 years.
Our second speaker, Elizabeth Moreno, is an executive, member of the DEI board of Sanofi, and former Minister for Equality between Women and Men, Diversity and Equal Opportunities in the government of Jean Castex. She created the association 8mars.org, La Puissance du Lien, which is based on the strength of human links and aims to inspire, transmit, and celebrate the success of women by bringing together institutional, associative, and corporate actors. She also implemented the Diversity and Inclusion Index for French and foreign companies in partnership with associations.
Our third speaker is Matteo Winkler. Matteo is an associate professor at the Law Department and academic director of SAMS at HEC Paris. At HEC, he also co-chairs the school's diversity committee, and he is really deeply committed to promote a more inclusive and equitable environment for all of us.
Last but not least, Karine Vasselin is an experienced HR business partner and people manager. Along her career at Capgemini, she's had several lives, from managing consultant, HR operations manager, talent lead, and HR director for sales and account manager. In February 2021, she was appointed Group D&I Director of Capgemini.
We are really excited to use this event as an opportunity to learn from their experiences, gain valuable insight, and engage in meaningful conversations. A bit of a run-through on how we came up with this event. As current and future leaders, it's crucial to equip students with the right tools to celebrate and manage diversity. However, it's really complex to tackle this issue, and it's present in a broader scale. But we wanted to raise awareness within our HEC community and aim for better.
We have a long way to go in achieving gender diversity, and events like these are critical to get the conversation going forward. We have today experts from corporate, public, and academic settings. And we're really exciting to all together may have a real difference.
We may invite Cécile Kossoff to set the stage and give us specific insights on gender diversity. So without further ado, I invite you to sit back and enjoy our incredible line of speakers, and remember, dare to care. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Shemzi and Elif, for organizing this event. Thank you, HEC. Thank you, Marcel, La Liberté, for helping us organize this event. Thank you for your participation. It's great to see young men, young women, and a lot of diversity in the room. Thank you to our eminent speakers who joined this panel. So I had, before joining the panel myself, I was tasked with this task of trying to set the stage. Actually, we're running a bit of time, so I will have to make it real quick, but really counting on this panel and the discussion to actually deep dive into some of the context. So bear with me. I would like to set the stage with, thank you very much, with first one case of exclusion. As we know, there are many, many types and many cases of exclusion in the world. I'm going to talk to you about the gender gap, the case for the global gender gap in particular in the economy and society, in the economy and at work. We actually know that women are discriminated in many dimensions. The case for change in the economy and at work is absolutely huge. And I believe that setting the stage with the gender gap, first is also speaking about probably the biggest case for change, because women represent over 50% of the world. We'll talk about this. I also believe that, and we also know that it's the only area, only category that we can measure. We cannot measure other types of discrimination in the world. So we can measure men and women, it's there, and that's why we can really build the case and act on the things that we measure. So that's why I would like to start with this, and then obviously we will open the discussion to broader cases of exclusion with the panel, but also on the case for inclusion. Let's start with facts. Facts matter. What you see here is actually what we call the big picture, the global pipeline of talent. Women actually represent, what does it say? It says that women represent actually 50% of the world's population, right? The world's working age population. And actually, nearly 60% of the talent of the graduated, upper graduated of the world. However, when you look at this pipeline and this funnel, as you go down the funnel of the contribution of women in the economy, and then in the top positions in corporations, what do you see? You see that you lose women on their, actually, on this funnel. So 60% of the talents of the world, but not even 40% of the contributors to the global GDP, not even 30% of the senior managers, 33% of the executive position, 20% of the corporate boards, and that's really thanks to Europe's quota policy, who actually is rebalancing the global numbers. And the numbers not long ago for the Fortune 500 were not even 3%. There has been an improvement in the Fortune 500 in 21, and now we are reaching nearly 8%. What does it say? It's very clear. If you have at the source, if you have the talents, if you have the women at the source, and we can't find them at the output of this funnel, it means that something doesn't work in between, right? It means that we have a broken corporate elevator, that something doesn't work. So we looked into this in my years of research. Obviously, before looking at why it's happening, there is a clear case for change. A lot of research have shown beyond the ethical cause, right? The ethical case. You have a clear economic case for change. There is a macro case for change. I won't spend time, we won't have time to discuss that, but the studies have shown that if women were contributing in the economy at parity in a realistic scenario with, of men, it could bring potentially an additional $12 trillion to the global GDP in 10 years from there, simply by contributing more, participating more in the economy and in the productive sectors and in the number of hours worked. We also know the case, and many institutions have shown that diversity goes together with performance. Organizations that are more diverse, and it's true for gender diversity, but also for other types of diversity, prove to be also more performance financially and in their teams. So if there is a strong case, it's been made for ages, why are we still stuck, right? For many years, and I'm sure my colleagues here will complete this experience, but we heard, yeah, but women have less ambitions, right? They prefer to be more at home. They don't look for those top positions. But actually, we did a lot of surveys, and what you see on this screen is just one example, one type of survey. But we asked men and women around the world in the corporations, from management level to top management level, if they want to be a top management leader in their career, if they want to reach a top position. And when you look at the answers from men and women, they are the same. Everyone says yes, you don't see much difference. Then if you ask both men and women, would you be ready to, those who want to be at the top, would you be ready to sacrifice a bit for a while your personal life and so on to reach this position? Both of them say, yeah, of course. There is no difference. And we ask questions and ask questions, and there is only one question, just one, where you have a big gap, a big difference between the answers of the men and the answers of the women. It's, do you believe that you're going to succeed? So we asked those people who say, yeah, I want to be a top leader. And do you believe that you will succeed? And here is the big gap. You have 18 points of difference between the answers of the men and the answers of the women. Women tend to not feel confident that they are going to succeed. And when we ask and we try to understand why. It's not because they don't believe they don't have the qualities. They don't believe that they live in an environment that will make it easy for them. They feel they have more, they have to struggle. What we showed is also that there is a clear correlation between the confidence of success that women can feel and whether they are operating in a place that is supportive of diversity, of gender diversity, and that it really cares. So confidence is a very clear issue, the lack of confidence of the success because of the environment. The second issue is, you've heard probably talk about the double burden. The double burden is women have in the world, and it's still the case, they are performing between 2 to 6 times more today the unpaid care work. You know, the housework, the family work, the elderly work as well now in an aging population. And this task is much more on women's shoulders and responsibilities in the world. It's just a fact. OECD numbers, World Bank numbers, everyone has the numbers. And why is this an issue? It's an issue because we have also proven that a clear correlation between in the countries where women are doing more unpaid care work, in these countries, actually that's where you have less women on the top executive committees levels. There is a clear correlation. You see the R square, very clear. And that's a problem because it's a penalty for women in the current performance model, you know, the anytime, anywhere type of leadership model. And when we ask people, you know, do you think that having a top career is compatible with being a parent? And actually they say, yes, it's compatible for men. 80% of the respondents think it's compatible for men, but just 62 respondents think it's compatible for women. So being a parent works for a father, but doesn't work for a mother. And having a top career, of course. So the double burden in the current environment is another issue. And the third issue, actually, if you want to check the number, I can give them to you. The third issue is the unconscious biases. You've heard about the unconscious biases. They are everywhere. So what is it? It's really the perceptions, the stereotypes, the perceptions that people have, and not just men. Those biases are also in the women themselves, who have internalized that their task maybe is to be, their responsibility is to be at home, and so on. So we looked at an interesting bias, which is we asked men and women, do you believe in corporations, same survey, do you believe that women are as good leaders as men? That blew up my mind, quite frankly. I was only 43%, so if you do the math, you see that nearly 60% are not convinced that women are as good leaders as men. Wow. And so why is this an issue? So that's the men, huh? The 43% of the men only are convinced, strongly convinced, that women are as good leaders. It was totally anonymous, so really no politically correct answers. And the consequence of that is that there are a lot of women who feel that they don't fit in the model, in the place. So it's very hard to succeed and to feel confident when you have a double burden, when you feel guilty because you should be at home and you have a top career, and when actually people look at you as you're not the right leader in the right place, right? That is much harder for them. You have here a lot of bias. We all know all those biases. Just to name a few: prove it again, and you have to prove it again and again. To name another one, the maternal wall. People think that since you've just had a baby or you're in charge of family, maybe we will not give you challenging tasks because you may not have the time and you're going to have too much. And the perfection bias. Who has a perfection bias? Like, I need to tick all the boxes, right, to apply for a position. Or recruiters who feel like they have to ask more credentials to women. So you're never fired for basically presenting a candidate, a male candidate, right? So we don't have the time to go into the details. I'll invite you to read this publication that we published at Mazars with the Observatory for Gender Balance on the 8 myths, and they are on mazars.com. You can, it's totally free, and we really identify and decrypt the myths that prevent women from advancing. And we'll talk a lot, so I'm not going to speak about that. We'll talk a lot about what do we need to do to make change happen. The only message here is there is not one size fits all. There is not silver bullet. You have to act in government levels, in the organizations, and also in the society, in the mindsets of the people. And in corporations, there is a lot that we can do, and there is a lot that we do. And you have to set up an ecosystem. It's not the volume of measures that matters. It's really a number of things that we need to do. My only message at this stage is to say most of the time companies do a lot of things. They tend to do a lot of things, and they tend to do a lot of things to help women. We have to support women. They are not confident, right? But helping women, coaching women, training women, that's great. You have to do that. But you also have to fix the place. So my conviction is that we have to shift now from fixing women to fixing the place. There is nothing to fix. Nothing to fix for women. But the place, you have a lot of things to fix. So as an example, this is a view of where we should actually go. If you think about giving equality of means, right, doesn't work. When we talk about equality, and if we think equality of means, it doesn't work. Because as you see, people are different, they have different needs. If you give them the same means, it's not going to work. So you have to give equality of chances. That's about equity. We have to drive equity. And much better, we have to drive inclusion, and inclusion is when you remove the barriers, right? So we have to act on 3 areas: managing the numbers, diversity, making sure we have all the people around the table to participate, but making sure you manage equity, the means, the tools to give them, to people depending on their needs. And finally, the mindsets and culture matter. It's not enough to have all the people around the table from diverse groups, but it's another thing to value their thoughts, to empower them, and really credit them for what they say. And on this note, I will end just saying that diversity is when you're invited to the party, inclusion is when you're invited to dance, and belonging is really when you feel that you can dance like no one's watching. That's really the ultimate stage that we would like to achieve. Thank you very much. Sorry. Excuse me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cecil, for setting up the stage. I think all the data that we saw, it's such a factual baseline that we have set for our actual discussion now. The topic here today is Dare to Care. We are all here to see that these factual data, these things are actually concerning, and now we will deep dive more into seeing how these gender gaps, how do we address these issues. So let me turn first to Madam Mohino. My first question to you is, you have exercised very prominent positions as CEOs, and more recently as the Minister of Equality between Men and Women, Diversity and Equal Opportunities in Government of Mr. Castic. How does Cecil's explanation resonate with your experience? Did you personally experience uneven play field as women in your career? Can you give us some examples on how you personally dealt with it?
Thank you for this beautiful question, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a pleasure for me being here, and I want to thank all the people who did organize this event and putting together this beautiful panel. I have met with my colleagues, and it's really a pleasure for me sharing this discussion. Don't you find funny to call this conference Dare to Care? Think about it for a minute. Human being needs attention. We need love. We need people make us feel that we matter and we are loved. And we have to think about daring to care. Isn't it crazy? We're just saying that we need to dare to pay attention to another human being. It's like if one of you, and I wish it never happens, you leave this room, you have an accident, someone goes through you and doesn't dare carrying you. That's exactly what we're talking about. And I think this period is a super interesting period because it forces us to think about us as human. Actually, it started during the COVID-19 pandemic, where suddenly we realized the vulnerability of our humanity. Because I don't know what happened to us in the past decade or so. We have the feeling that we can control everything. We are so powerful. We can go to the moon. We can build a nuclear bomb. Can you imagine how smart we are? But we can be as smart as we are. We don't know how to care another human being sitting next to us. I think I'm speaking to the future leaders of the world, be it in France. I hope you will all stay in France because we desperately need you. But you are supposed to be the elite of tomorrow. You are supposed to be the one that will be leading this world, and hopefully you will do a better job than we did on this matter. And you're asking me if I have suffered being discriminated. Okay, I'm a woman, I'm black, I have a disability, I am a migrant, I come from humble beginnings. Who thinks that I have been discriminated? Raise your hand. Don't you find interesting being discriminated because of something you don't even choose. I mean, I didn't choose my sex. Otherwise, I can tell you, I would have chosen to become a boy. Man, this life is so difficult for women. Really. From the moment you are born till the moment you die, you are underestimated because you are a girl. You know, I'm going to tell you an interesting thing. When I was at the ministry in the government, I have met with so many men who told me, your ministry is useless. Because in this country, every woman has the same right as men. Mm-hmm. And I have met with so many women who told me, oh, I like what you do, but be careful, I'm not a feminist. And I asked them, but what is a feminist for you? You know, these crazy women who speak about barbecue, who hate men, who are never happy. And I was like, but that's a kind of representation of feminists. But I mean, not all feminists are like them. Feminism is a kind of, it's a political movement, which means that you have all type of feminism. I have suffered a lot in my life. You can't even imagine all the suffering I have had. But the beauty of life is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And by coincidence, I did my entire career in very male-dominated environment. Not on purpose, it was not chosen. It's just that it happened this way. I have been in the building industry. I was 20. I let you imagine the beautiful journey I have had there. When I started my company, I was an entrepreneur, and I started my career, my company, I was 20, and we were 3, and we grew, and we had 30 employees. I was super proud because nobody was expecting me there. Then I joined the tech industry. I started as a manager, you know, one of the managers that nobody thinks that you can succeed because your leadership is crap. I started as a manager and I ended leading a continent. I had not studied engineering, neither STEM, nothing. But I'm curious, I'm brave, I'm a hard worker, and I believe life has so much to give. And I strongly believe that talent, ambitions, courage, capabilities, competencies has absolutely nothing to see with your gender, the color of your skin, your religion, where you're born, whether your parents are rich or not. The only difference is the number of opportunities you are given. And when you are born a black girl, I can tell you, in a poor country, I can tell you, opportunities are very poor. But it doesn't mean that you cannot succeed. And I think my mission in life is to show people that from wherever you come, whatever gender is yours, whatever religion, color of your skin, place of your living, the name you wear, whatever life gives you, you cannot control. But you can control the way you use it to shine and make your life the most beautiful you can. And to those of you who have faced discrimination, I just want you to know that there are 25 prohibited criteria of discrimination in the French law, which means that each and single one of us in this room, at one moment of our life, we will be either discriminated or we will be witnessing. So I can even tell you that I'm surprised that there are so few people in this room, because discrimination speaks to every single human being. Whether you're told that you are too old, too tall, too fat, too everything or not enough everything. But we shouldn't let anybody decide what our life will be because of the projection they have on us. And you are at the beginning of your life. Will you be discriminated? Probably. But the people that will be discriminating you are not talking about you. They are talking about their own discrimination. They are talking about their own limitation. They are talking about their own rejection. And you shouldn't let anyone stop you from being who you are supposed to be and the fantastic person you are supposed to become.
Thank you so much for filling all of us with so much power. I think you shared all of your personal experiences, and those are very close to you, and we all could like relate and see. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. Moving on. My next question is for Madam Vassallo. As an HR and D&I leader in large global consulting firms, do you also recognize these issues? Can
Yes.
you share some typical biases and barriers that you faced, and what makes it so hard?
I totally recognize our company and our journey in what you presented, Cécile, and what you shared so authentically, Mrs. Minister. I think that there is a combination of biases and sometimes self-censorship at every stage in the journey, in fact. For us, as a tech company, the first obstacle is that we have to have enough women coming to us, because you know that tech is still a dominant male sector, and so we don't have enough women applying to our jobs. Most of the time because there are not so many to embrace STEM studies, because they feel they don't belong to that domain or they couldn't succeed, and because sometimes the teachers themselves don't presume they are less interested. Then, when we speak about reaching a middle management position, there are other obstacles. For instance, we have noticed by statistics that women get nominated to promotion only when they are 150% ready. So it is like that you can't just be a good or average performer as a woman. You have to be above expectations, because there's always the risk that you will ruin the future candidates coming after you. And then even at top level, or even more at top level position, there are other types of obstacles. Sometimes some of our promising talent, they just don't want to apply because they don't want to belong to the boys' club. They don't recognize or see themselves among those bunch of men at the top. Or sometimes they suffer from what we call the number two syndrome. I mean, they are perfectly well in doing the job as number two, but suddenly when it comes to nominate the number one, they are either, as you were saying, too much like this or not enough like that, so they don't fit. And I'm even surprised that for even top leaders who have reached the board or the executive summit of the company, they always feel a pressure. They always feel judged for their appearance, the way they are dressed, their haircut, their reactions, their emotions. And there is always a question about their abilities. Do they sit at the board just because they are women? So clearly we are on the transformation journey, but there are lots of progresses still to be made.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. My next question is for Professor Winkler. Professor, you are an expert and have a long research on human rights, especially approaching the LGBTQI community. We spoke a lot about gender gap. Do you think these issues resonate with the community as well? And are these discriminations different for a specific group? Or is there a common mechanism which creates exclusion for those who don't fit in the dominant world?
Thank you for this question. So yes, absolutely. There is a gap also affecting the LGBTQ community. and I can bring my personal experience, besides the fact that I want you to see that this panel has no white, straight men in it. So once, when I was a lawyer, I was involved in a litigation with a prospective litigation for a client, was a foreign minister of a country whose majority is Muslim. So when they asked me to go to the meeting with the minister, I had this colleague who told me not to move my hands too much because I tend to do like this. And besides the fact that I always joke about that because I think that, you know, LGBTQ people, by moving their hands, they contribute to the oxygen in the environment. Besides this, I think that that was a typical case where the fact that I was a Yale Law School graduate, that I had a PhD for one of the most prestigious universities in Italy, didn't count anything. It only counted how I behave and how I move my hands. Right? And when it goes to statistics, there have been experiments that have been made in various countries. And so these experiments are the classical experiments that you do in using curriculums, right? So you send out 2,000, 3,000 curriculum to companies, and these curriculums contain one small thing that tells you that the candidate belongs to the LGBTQ community. So for example, being an activist or you're a member of the association, I'm sure some of the students here are members of either In and Out or the LGBTQ plus and Allies Club in the MBA, and they may want to tell their future employers that they have this experience in their CVs. And besides, statistics also show that people tend not to put this information anymore in the curriculum because they are afraid of biases, and I think that is one of the problems that we have to address. But and then you send the same amount of curriculums to companies not with this small thing in it, and it came out in various experiments that the people with curriculum that contained these little LGBTQ related detail received 30% less offers of employment. So this means that we have a problem there in employment for LGBTQ community. If you think also of the transgender, so we also, the tendency is also to abstract things, like to talk about LGBTQ community. This is an imagined community, right? It exists relatively in reality. But think about the transgender people who have the documents indicating one sex, and then their gender that they show is different. Today in the class of diversity and inclusiveness in the MBA, we discussed the restrooms problems. So I don't know if you are aware, but before all this debate that we have on restrooms, in schools, when you had a transgender kid or a person who was feeling belonging to the opposite gender, there was absolutely no issue. The school talked to the parents and to the kids, and they arranged something for the restrooms, and everyone was happy. And then we had these politicians trying to polarize the debate on restrooms. So now the result is that, when you have to pee, you need to find a field somewhere, because the public accommodation in certain countries, you are a transgender person, you cannot go relieve yourself in a bathroom of your own gender, because you have to go to the bathroom of the gender of your birth, which makes totally no sense, right? So the visibility is the key, right? So the discrimination here is how the people looks like, and also their sexual orientation or gender identity. Also, other experiments that have been conducted are of people who are interviewed with some, like, you know, a pin with a rainbow or a hat saying like, gay is good. In that case, the interviewer had no eye contact with the person, and of course the interview went bad. The results were negative. Why? Because of that little visible hint. So the question is, should we stay invisible, or should we continue making ourselves visible as a white, straight man usually do? And I want to add a final note that we cannot think of promoting gender equality without talking about the LGBTQ and without talking about race.
Absolutely.
Because all these things go together, right? The experience of discrimination of a black woman is totally different from the experience of discrimination of a white woman. The system is made for men, and partially, but they say, yeah, women are equal. And then you have to question which women, transgender women, black women. There is also a segment in that women's community that we need to address.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you for highlighting all the gaps there, Professor. I think these are very concerning for all of us. We are sitting here and hearing all of this actually gives us goosebumps to see the differences. Thank you so much for highlighting them. Moving on, my next question is for you, Cecil. You mentioned that countries who have advanced the most in gender equality in non-executive boards are those where quotas are applied. Do you think that these quotas achieve equality, and why? And if there is a problem, do you think with the risk to appoint incompetent people or as being unfair to men, should we just not promote people based on their performances, or should we just feel that we are incompetent there?
Is it a serious question?
Yes.
That's a
We will
teasing
address
question,
this
of
today.
course. Come on.
We all
Let's-
really want to know this, because I think like all of us at some stages of our career have felt that we are not enough for this. We have doubted ourselves, and I think it is important that we address this here today.
But you're right, and the question actually, I'm asked this question many times, still today.
Yes.
No one likes quotas, right? I mean, we all dream of a world where only good intentions will work, right? And people don't like quota because it's associated with this idea that, we like to choose. It's going to, promote incompetent people from a day to another, into positions and so on. So we should ask the question actually slightly differently. Are we really today convinced that we are operating in meritocratic places when you have a system that misses out 50%, 60% of the talents of the world in the upper and decision-making positions? Do we think that we are really in a meritocracy? And by the way, today, are we convinced that we don't appoint competent people at the most important positions, or just the people that are very visible here eating the grass at the road, right? Or where, what about the invisible women? How can we do a better job? And so a quota is nothing more and nothing less than an objective that tells you, okay, now you have to work. It's time to work. And by the way, you have a couple of years. You always have a timeline that goes with a quota. So it's not like propulsing someone overnight, right? But it's telling, hey, wake up call. It's the end of the, of the game. You have to start working. You have to do what's right in your system. You have to clean your room. You have to fix the place so that in 5 years' time, then you really have the choice between, a pool of candidates that is really the result of a meritocracy. That's what quota is. And force est de constater, I mean, the data speaks for themselves. The countries who progressed on the boards where that's where we have quotas are the countries where you had quotas. It didn't progress in anywhere else. So unfortunately, yes, we need quotas. Unfortunately, and I'm very happy to be a. If I had to be a quota woman, I would be extremely happy to be a quota woman. I'm not ashamed of that.
Thank you, Cecile. Just a follow-up on this personally for you, Cecile. What would you say to people, to women who feel that for this I'm not enough, or like I feel not confident about going ahead with this role? What would you say them?
About confidence?
Yes.
I think confidence is a big story. I think it's typical of women, but not just women. I think all the people who are discriminated, feel unconfident. That's how it works. The way people look at you make you the best people in the world, or make you feel the worst, crappiest people in the world. It really depends of how you look at people. And coming back to your point around care, and that's why we call this thing Dare to Care, because really where we have to work hard is to build this confidence in women, of course, because we know that we have facts, we know that women feel less confident, but actually to any people. So, if people don't look at you like you're worth it, just close your eyes and think of yourself as with all the things that constitute who you are and the uniqueness of who you are, and feel confident because you're worth it. But it's something that is very important, but we have to help others feel confident, and that's the role of companies and of organizations to set up the right mechanisms so that people feel welcome, included, invited, and therefore confident.
Okay, if you allow me to add something, because this thing of trust and confidence and self-esteem is what really prevent people from realizing themselves. And I think Cecile is right when she says, close your eyes and go for it. Just think about your dream. But sometimes, unfortunately, it's not enough. So you have to make sure that you find people who will support you on that journey. You have to find people who will mentor you. You have to find people who tells you, hey, you know what? Whatever happens, I'll be there for you. You may fail, but I'll help you to succeed. You see? Because nobody can succeed alone, and particularly when the system is against you. Because sometimes you desperately want things to happen, but there are too many obstacles. And it's something magic when you know what you want, when you have the vision of what you want to realize. Life is magic. It helps you find the people who will help you succeed, provided you ask for help. I think it's something really important. My entire career was in a very male-dominated environment. Hence, I had very few women to support me, but I found fantastic men who supported me. So we shouldn't see this gender equality subject as a fight between men and women. Yet there is always somebody ready to help. Raise your hand, ask for help, and please, if you happen to be in a place where you feel that people don't want you there, move. There are so many people waiting for you somewhere. Don't lose your time in a place where people don't want you. You may lose too much energy for people who do not deserve you. It's as simple.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think we all need to hear this today, right? Thank you. Moving on to our next section, which is about how do we identify these drivers and how do we identify what are exactly these change drivers to address the gap. Starting from Madame Vasselon, how can companies deal with gender gaps and which other type of discrimination are out there? How can we accelerate this and what are the game changers as per you for the organizations out there?
I think we need, as you said, strong allies and strong advocates. And I think it starts by the top leadership. I mean, the commitment of the CEO is really important because it sets the tone. And we have the chance to have a male CEO, but who is really personally very committed to that. And so he's the one deciding new affiliations, new KPIs, putting accountability on the managers, fixing them for objectives linked to their direct remuneration. So it really makes a change when we have his support and his commitment. But we need strong relays around and at the other levels. And for this, I strongly believe in the power of role models first, because it's good having somebody like me speaking about diversity and inclusion, but it's even better when we have people who represent diversity and who demonstrate that they made it. So when we have women as top architects, women leading in cybersecurity, or black women who are reached the top level of the company, this really makes a difference because you can just see that this is possible and there is a way. A difficult way sometimes, but this is possible. What is really important as well is to have sponsorship, because you were speaking about mentoring. This is good, but I think this is not enough. For me, sponsorships go beyond, because when you commit to be a sponsor, you commit to achieve a tangible result. And so you commit to open your network and support this person till the objectives you have aligned on together. So your mission as a sponsor is not finished until you get these people promoted, for instance. And finally, I would say that we have the chance to rely on something that sometimes looks a bit difficult, but really helpful in fact, which is data. Because we keep on hearing, oh yes, we could have more women promoted, but they just don't exist in the pipeline. Okay, they don't exist, but let me find out in the HR system, let me extract the list of people who are eligible for promotion because they have the required tenure in the grad and because they have the required performance. And you said there is nobody, I can edit you in 5 minutes a list of 50 persons. But surprisingly, of course, they were not in the radar because they are not part of the usual suspects, and so they were disregarded. So data on this matter could really help a lot.
Thank you for that. I hope all these things start getting accommodated soon. We are all ready to go out there. Yeah. Moving on, my next question is for Cecile. You have been working on this topic for close to 15 years, right? And this has been great to know all the facts out there. Since the creation of Women Matter, the McKinsey research which built the case for greater gender diversity, now you're driving this topic globally for measures. Why is this still a problem? Are we doing the right things in companies? Are we doing enough, or are we stuck somewhere?
So since we're a bit behind time, I'm not going to go again. I showed the ecosystem. I think just a few ideas. You mentioned the KPIs, the data is absolutely essential. You can really get what you inspect, not just what you expect all. You have to have the relevant answers. I talked about stop fixing women, fix the place. So, and that leads me to the very important point is if we want to act on the biases, right, which are really making it hard everywhere for all types of exclusion and diversity. Actually, often we tend to think that we make a mistake because we think that we will solve the mindset issues by the behaviors issue. We'll change the behaviors of the people because we will talk to them. We'll say, that's not good, you should change that, it's unfair. But actually, what we know is that you have actually, of course you have to communicate, of course you have to explain, you have to do trainings on awareness and so on. But first you have to work on the processes. Processes will make the changes happen. Just one example, in the 50s, the symphonic orchestras used to hire only male musicians. And where you would ask the heads of the orchestras, why is this the case? Yeah, but they are better, slightly better than female musicians. One day they changed the process. they decided that they would do audition behind the curtains. And what happened? A lot of women were hired suddenly. So processes, the same in the companies. You know, if you want to hire talent and be fair and start to meritocracy, you make sure that the evaluation committees to assess, you know, the talented people who you're going to put in your high potential pool of talent and so on, they should be diverse. And by the way, not just men and women, because it's not just about men and women, but have a diversity of ethnicity, ethnic representation, LGBTQ, and so on. So let's make sure that we are putting in place the right processes and the policies that are going to help and support those who are change the place. That's really what I believe.
Thank you, Cecile. Talking a little bit more about data and KPI trackings here, Professor. Cecile mentioned the importance of tracking KPIs and monitoring them closely, targeting the action where it matters. How do we do this for communities that are discriminated, but where KPI tracking is not permitted by law? As we know in Europe, for example, it's not allowed to track sexual orientation, ethical backgrounds of people. Is this a problem? How can we track APIs, and how do we identify the gaps and act on them?
So one problem that we have in France is that we cannot track data relating to race or ethnic origins. There is a law about that. I'm not aware of any changes recently. Even if I know there have been some discussions to change that. The paradoxical thing is that then it has been decided to remove the word race from the Constitution, which is something that strikes me because it's exactly where the problem lies, right? When we use concepts and labels to determine something that have an impact in the real world. But you know, this is my executive committee, only white French men, obviously. And he said, I'm not firing two of my executives to hire more women. Okay. And my response was like, okay, why don't you add 2 more places or 3 more places, right, to make place for women?